So a year later, nearly 75,000 applicants remain in the pipeline requesting escape from Afghanistan. That's according to the latest State Department estimate. Something one of our next guests says would take more than 100 years to process at the current pace we're doing it. So let's discuss that and more with former State Department official and former foreign policy advisor to the Obama campaign, David Tafuri, and Save Our Allies co-founder and author of Saving Aziz, How the Mission to Help One Became a Calling to Rescue Thousands from the Taliban, Chad Robichaux. Thank you both for being back with us.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start by playing this. This is Congressman Mike McCall, Texas, today, well, Monday, talking about what's the real situation still there in Afghanistan.
We still have 1,000 American citizens left behind in Afghanistan a year later, and 100,000 Afghan partners were left behind that we promised we would protect.
Chad, you've been on the ground there quite a bit. What is the situation? And have we really left behind that many people that we said as Americans we would take, some kind of control of getting them out of there?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't know how many Americans are there because we allowed the Taliban to control the outer perimeter access, and blue passport holders were getting their passports taken from them, sent away, beaten, taken away by the Taliban, and this was eyewitnesses, from right on the ground outside of the HK airport. So we have no idea how many Americans are there. One is too many, and our administration left them there. I know the report, State Department said 74,274 SIV applicants are still in Afghanistan, 4.5 times the average family member, 330,000 people that we left behind that we promised that we would protect. These are people that fought beside us for 20 years, just like Aziz, who I did 8 deployments with. These people deserve a chance to come to America. Meanwhile, we have 10,000 people per day pouring over our southern border while we're keeping these people who fought beside us for 20 years. We're keeping them from coming to the United States.
Yeah, and as you're talking, we're showing images from about a year ago when this whole thing fell apart, and it was just devastating and heartbreaking to watch what was happening there. Congressman Darrell Issa, he's a Republican, said this today. No one is buying that Biden just happens to be vacationing out of sight. He's being hidden from public view on the anniversary of his catastrophe in Afghanistan. Too cynical there, David, or fair?
I doubt that's why President Biden is on vacation. But first of all, I want to applaud Chad on the rescues that he's done in Afghanistan. Anyone saving Afghans who helped us or Americans and getting them out of Afghanistan is doing great work. This is a very grim anniversary. Nobody is celebrating this anniversary except for a few young men who are Taliban members in Afghanistan, because they're the only ones that have benefited over the last year. And Afghanistan is heading closer and closer to a very substantial crisis. As you mentioned earlier, it's a humanitarian disaster. There's not enough food and there's not enough medical supplies, and the Taliban just doesn't have the capacity to remedy that. And the U.S. is in a very difficult place because we don't want to help the Taliban, but we also don't want Afghanistan to become a failed state. Moreover, the presence of Zawahiri, who we killed 2 weeks ago, and I applaud the Biden administration for targeting him, shows that the Taliban was harboring al-Qaeda, and that is a violation of the Doha Agreement. So this is not headed in the right direction.
Yeah, in the meantime, the UN says there are daily reports of violence, extrajudicial killings, disappearances, arbitrary detention, torture, heightened risks of exploitation faced by women and girls, including for the purposes of child and forced marriage, and a breakdown in the rule of law. I mean, Chad, how do we turn that around? Or is it our job to be involved in turning things around there?
Well, it perfectly said. The Doha Agreement was, signed a month after this administration took over. To believe that a terrorist regime was going to uphold their end of the deal with that was just naive or reckless. And now we're seeing it. I mean, al-Zawahiri was walking around. Al-Qaeda was walking around freely in Kabul. And so this is a safe haven for terrorism. When we were there, when the United States was there, we had Bagram Air Force Base, which is the most strategic place on the globe between Iraq, Iran, Russia, and China. And we had kept terrorism at bay. It was a complete effort by the international community to keep terrorism back in the mountains of Afghanistan. And now Kabul and Afghanistan is a safe haven for terrorists. The world's a much more dangerous place. And not to mention the 40 million Afghans that are there in this devastating situation, such poverty, and the 20 million women who are immediately identified as sex slaves, lost women's rights, their freedom to be able to be educated and have become nurses and teachers and doctors. It's a terrible situation, and I don't know how the administration could turn it around at this point. To be honest, sadly,
it's devastating to hear about these young women who are going to school. Some of them, the young ones, they had grown up always knowing that freedom, and to suddenly be cast back into the dark ages essentially has been devastating. David and Chad, thank you both. We're going to keep talking about this story, and we hope you will too.
Thank you, guys.